Good morning, everybody. Yesterday I went live and noticed after somebody commented that I was showing a blank screen. So let me just make sure we're all good. All right. Okay, so again, good morning and welcome to this video. It is Tuesday, I think it's the 11th, 10th, February 10th. And today I'm going to talk about like the die with zero kind of strategy that a lot of people kind of hear about, and maybe they've read a book on it. I met with a potential client this morning, and it kind of motivated me to give a little bit more of my perspective on dying with zero. So I'll kind of dive into that. If you're new here, my name is Trent Grigorchik, and I am a practicing financial advisor. This channel is dedicated to giving education and some coaching around the different retirement planning tools. And it's not meant to, be financial advice because I don't know your situation, so nothing here is financial advice. But the main topic today of dying with zero is a strategy. It's definitely not something that is. I think a lot of people's gut reaction or knee-jerk reaction is like you're not being financially prudent with your resources. I would actually say it is quite the opposite. Dying with zero is something that does take a lot of strategic planning, and there's a lot of things that come with optimizing your retirement to die with zero, right? So in a nutshell, dying with zero is like you deplete your resources almost entirely by the time you reach the end of life. Right. So, and there's a lot of different ways to look at it. Today, I'm just going to introduce you to a tool that can solve for that. I think the best is any other tool, better than any other tool. And that's Income Lab. Income Lab uses a very sophisticated guardrails retirement income strategy. And it is a lot of people maybe have heard of like the 4% rule. And that is just a very, very cookie cutter way of looking at how much you can spend in retirement. And the guardrails approach is dynamic. So it adjusts as time passes, as your portfolio goes up, as your portfolio goes down. And if somebody does, in fact, have the mindset of dying with zero, it can be one of the most effective financial planning tools to use because you can solve for that. All right. So what I'm going to do is screen share, and I'm going to share with you a tool that I use. And if you find this tool interesting, feel free to go to the link in the first comment in this video, or go to my profile and click the link, and I can give you access to Income Lab. Okay, so let me share my screen and we can dive right in. All right, so I'm going to make sure it looks like I am good. This is where I went blank yesterday. Okay, so this is Income Lab, and this is literally like what you would see if you logged in. It is the identical, like advisor side and client side is almost the exact same, minus a couple bells and whistles on the client side. The purpose of the platform is to say, hey, here's how much you are forecasted to have when you retire, and then here's how much you might want to consider spending. And a quick way that we can maximize how much you're spending in retirement with the goal of having zero at the end. So there's a couple things we can do here. This is where we would, you would, or me, if you ended up hiring me as your financial planner, this is where you would tinker with the levers to say, how much am I going to spend that I feel comfortable with the mission of dying with zero? Okay. So stay with me. And if you kind of get lost, the best thing to do is just to, go to the link and in the comments or in my profile. And then we can go dive deeper into, your situation. But when it comes to your like dying with zero mindset, here's what we're going to, this is the thinking that you kind of have to go through with this type of financial planning. And that is, how do we balance having enough as we age as reserves, just in case there's a drop in the market, right? So in a traditional Monte Carlo forecast, what you would see is like, oh, you have this chart that goes from 2 million today and you end up with 5 million at the end of life. Well, a lot of people are trying to avoid that when they are trying to die with zero, right? They don't want 5 million at the end of life. They want to literally like just have enough to make it to the finish line, right? And so there's a couple things I wanted to kind of get you thinking about if you were to use a tool like this. The first is making sure, like you would set a portfolio legacy goal to zero. You don't have the desire to leave anything. So that's going to allow the system to give you more spending power, right? So if we say, hey, we want to have the same amount left at the end of life as we do at the start of retirement. Let's say, I just want to show you how that changes your retirement spending power. So you can see your retirement paycheck dropped. So if you do plan on having a legacy and you want to earmark that, it's going to impact your retirement paycheck. But for the folks that just want to die with zero, we can get rid of that. So that maximizes your retirement paycheck even more. Also, what we can do is we can modify how much you're willing to risk overspending. So within Income Lab, let me just refresh this. All right, so within Income Lab here, you can see this is pretty much the default. There's something called the income setting. And the income setting is calculated based off of the risk of overspending and underspending. All right, so this is a key piece that I want you to kind of walk away with here. The default is a 20% risk of overspending and an 80% risk of underspending. So if you were to go with the default, which is pretty cautious in my opinion, that a 20% risk of overspending is that's pretty good odds, right? A lot of the die with zero crowd, again, depending on your situation, they might like to be a little bit more aggressive with their spending and say, hey, I'm willing to risk a 30% risk of overspending and a 70% risk of underspending. Again, underspending is what they're trying to avoid, right? The die with zero crowd. So in that situation, if they're comfortable potentially overspending and there's a 30% risk of overspending, a lot of them are comfortable with that. But Income Lab makes it very turnkey for you to test for these certain things, right? So that's one way to plan for dying with zero is, hey, here's how much we have. We are planning on not leaving a legacy, maximize our spending, and I'm comfortable with a 30% risk of overspending. And then you run it, right? So I just want to refresh it to show you the difference in spending, which sometimes it's very, very minimal, like just a few $1,000s sometimes. So yeah, just $3 extra $1,000 of retirement paycheck. Okay. And then there's other things we can do here within Income Lab. One thing you can do is adjust your asset allocation. Sometimes that can give you a little bit more or a little bit less spending power, depending on your comprehensive financial situation. Another thing that you can adjust to see how much extra you could squeeze out of your retirement paycheck is longevity. So depending on the time frame that you want to plan for will depend on how the system calculates your retirement paycheck. So if we were to say, hey, I'm just going to plan on, living below average as far as the length of retirement in this hypothetical situation, this would be 31 years of retirement duration, right? So I'll recalculate based off of that. So you can see we're squeezing out little by little here. Another thing I want to test here is, okay, so let me just get you caught up here. If you're joining now, what I'm showing you is if you are in the die with zero crowd and you want to see how much can I possibly spend in a prudent way with structure, Income Lab is a really good tool for you to consider. And if we were to back into this, it is essentially planning for a zero legacy. We are going to, be a little bit more aggressive with our spending here. I'm actually going to turn it up all the way just for the heck of it. 40% risk of overspending. Okay. Just to kind of see how much we can squeeze out of here. And then we're going to live below average. Hopefully not, but we're just going to plan for a 31-year period of retirement. So 31 years. So I'm going to keep refreshing, and then we can just see how much we can squeeze out of this. And then what I want to show you is how to stress test this. So you can actually go into the numbers and back test this according to what has historically happened in the markets, and then see if this is something you really want to consider planning for. The other thing I want to do is we're going to test the investment strategy to see if becoming a little bit more conservative or being a little bit more aggressive has a better outcome for this specific situation. So I'm going to go conservative, just to see for Mike's IRA, we'll go more conservative. And we'll be able to tell pretty much right away whether becoming more conservative has a little bit more spending power or not. So it looks like it has a negative impact to this plan, but I'm going to change these as well. And if you like these live streams, give me a comment or a like, just so I know if people actually like to see this live, kind of on the fly, as opposed to this fancied up video that is more focused on production than just diving into actionable things that you can actually build your retirement plan. Okay, so you can see that we started off at like the lower 150s and then scaled up to 159 as far as our retirement paycheck in 2027. So it looks as though being more conservative with our portfolio would not necessarily allow us to squeeze out more of our retirement paycheck. However, one thing that you would want to dive into is actually seeing and stress testing this versus being a little bit more aggressive to see the back test of that in history, right? So you want to make sure that if you are going to be more aggressive in this scenario, that you would be making sure that you're not going to be seeing a historical back test that is set up for failure, right? So I don't want to oversimplify this process by telling you this is super easy. It definitely takes a little bit of coordinating. But this is again just like a handful of things that you can do in order to say, here's how much I have, how much can I spend if I don't want to have a legacy left or a portfolio assets left at the end of life. This is kind of the process that you have to kind of go through. So just to recap up to this point, planning for zero, and we want to maximize our income. I want to change these back to tilting. I'm going to tilt this a little bit more aggressive just to see if that squeezes out a little bit. So you can see it's starting to go back up the other way. Sarah's 401k. So this would essentially be like a 80-20 portfolio, I think. Yeah, this would be about 80-20. Made it to the 160. All right, so you can kind of see the evolution of when you test the different levers, how that impacts the retirement paycheck. All right. The next thing I wanted to kind of go through and show you that will help if you want access to Income Lab, just reach out, and I can tell you how to get access to it and where to go. The one thing I want to kind of call out here is one thing I love about Income Lab is how it gives you it prefaces what you're going to do when your account does certain things, right? So as life changes in the portfolio, and as your portfolio goes up and as it goes down, there's going to be a dynamic spending approach here. So this is the initial target, right? Hypothetically, for this hypothetical household. And then if the portfolio goes up to 2.5 million, you plan for an increase, and that's 185. So a pretty good bump in pay, right? And if the portfolio drops to 1.5 million, then we're going to give ourselves a little bit of a pay cut. So in order to see success with using the die with zero approach, having a dynamic retirement income strategy is absolutely critical. Because if you approach the die with zero with a fixed kind of spending and you're not adapting when the markets are going up and down, this is not financial advice, but in my opinion, that is not going to turn out as well as something like this. And like I said, this does come with a little bit of work, with a little bit of prep work, a little bit of tinkering with the tools, but really like up to this, like you've witnessed how much time I've spent in here. The other, you might have 15 minutes of like inputting your account values and, what your profile looks like, entering in your date of birth and social security, benefits numbers, and if you have a pension and your portfolio values and how you're invested. And then, maybe that's 15, 20 minutes of data input. And then you get to this point, and then it's just a matter of clicking out this slider and then diving right into, well, how do I maximize this and optimize it? And then what you do is you test the plan. So this takes just about 20 seconds or so. And then I'm going to bounce in about 2 minutes for a call that I have at 10 o'clock. Again, if you want access to Income Lab, just shoot me a note, click the link somewhere around. My profile is the best place to go because it's always there. Or you can just search for my name, Trent Grigorczyk, and you can get a hold of me. So this is like testing the plan. This kind of back tests and shows you, based off of what we kind of narrowed down to in that hypothetical example, here's the amount of scenarios that were above the planned spending or below the planned spending. Really, really cool how you can dive into this. And I'm not going to go through every single one, but if you, again, if you want access to this to see these types of things, let me know. Income adjustments on average, every 3 years, you give yourself a 5% pay raise. On average, again, this is a back test. On average, every 11 years, you give yourself a 6% pay cut. Not too bad. And then it gives you a bunch of example scenarios of how your paycheck changes over time. This is, kind of like a Monte Carlo-ish type way of thinking about, how your retirement spending could change over time, depending on how your portfolio adapts and changes over time. So there's a heck of a lot within Income Lab. There's even a Roth conversion area where once you build out your guardrails strategy, like I just kind of showed you, you can dive in here and see how that type of retirement income strategy impacts your Roth conversion strategy, right? And it's really easy to kind of narrow down what is the most financially optimal. It'll automatically latch on to the lowest lifetime tax rate scenario. But a lot of people have different preferences with Roth conversions. Sometimes Roth conversions don't make sense for somebody because of that zero legacy mindset, right? Again, depending on your situation, might depend on what you choose here. But this makes it really easy for you to dial in Roth conversions as well. And there's a whole other load of things, too much for this video. So I'm going to take off to go to my next meeting. But I hope this was valuable, and I hope this die with zero. I hope that crowd hears this video and sees this video. So if you wouldn't mind subscribing and sharing this video, because there's a lot of those types of people that if you don't have the structure and the tools to kind of make that possible and make that easy, it's a slippery slope to getting yourself into a situation where you're way overspending. And I don't want that for you or them, right? So subscribe, that helps. Share, comment, try to spread the word on this approach with this tool, Income Lab. And yeah, that's it for this video. I will see you in the next one. Take care.